back, knitters. This is Jana with Purl Together. This week I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot decrease section number 2 and 3, I guess, of the Lovella Shawl knit along that we're wrapping up. Mine is blocking on the floor in our spare room, and I'll show you that, as well as there's a link down below to my Ravelry project page if you want to check out better photos over there. But I didn't want to hold up the video by trying to get better photos. There's also a bunch of slushy, dirty snow on the ground, even though it's not even Halloween yet. But that's such is life in Wyoming, right? Before we get started with decrease section number 2, which is the lace, I want to give a big shout out and a hearty thank you to my 2 newest patrons, Mary and Teresa. Thanks so much for joining me. If you're interested in joining our patron family, go over to patreon.com/purltogether, and there you can see what benefits I'm offering for a small monthly pledge. So go check that out when you get a moment. But first, we're going to get started with the lace section of our Lovella shawl. Okay, as we're working through the second decrease section, there's a few things I just wanted to point out that I noticed as I'm knitting through this and as I did it the first time. One is that these eyelets occur on every 4th row. So if you happen to set down your knitting and you're not come back and you're not sure what row you're on, you know that the eyelet rows here, where you have all the yarn overs, those occur on rows 4, 8, 12, and 16. And then I put a locking stitch marker at the end of each 16 row repeat. So if I were to come back and not realize where I am, I've just completed one of the eyelet rows, and here is my locking stitch marker at the completion of the other one. So I know that that's row 4, then I must have just finished row 8. So I hope that makes sense, and I've done the whole repeat 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So I'm in the middle of the 5th time through the 16 row repeat. So the other thing to notice is that through every 16 row repeat, you're going to be decreasing 4 stitches on the long side and 2 stitches on the short side. So you want to double check. Now again, I made a similar chart for myself that I showed you in the last video. Okay, at the very beginning of this section, we started out with 26 stitches on the short side, your center spine stitch, and then we had 49 on the long side. So after each 16 row repeat, you would have 24 and 45, and then 22 and 41. So this decreases by 4 after each 16 row repeat and by 2 on the short side. So I would just make myself a little chart and then just check them off as you go and make sure you're on track. The other thing that you can look for if you lose track of where you are, on the wrong side row is where all of the yarn overs happen. However, let's say I didn't keep track with the stitch marker and I was not sure where I was when I came back to this. In addition to counting from the beginning by 4s, 4, 8, 12, 16, and so forth to determine how many repeats you have and what row this eyelet might be. If you weren't sure, like let's say I know this is a multiple of 4, but then I'm not sure where I'm at after that, especially since the pattern has me go through, like rows 9 through 12 are repeating rows 1 through 3. You'll notice that on the wrong side you have 2 purl ridges, or 2 garter stitch ridges between each eyelet. So there's a garter stitch ridge, and there's one too. So I know that I need to do another back and forth another couple of times before I do another eyelet row. So I hope that makes sense. So in my case, I need to do rows 10 and 11 before I do another eyelet row. Okay, I'm on row 12, which is another eyelet row, and I've come along doing yarn over, slip, slip, knit, yarn over, slip, slip, knit. And the reason I know that without even consulting the pattern is because this is the spine here, and all of your decreases are going to lean toward the center. So if you don't have your center spine stitch marked, you can easily tell that that's where that is, and that comes up to this stitch. Now, if you get off on your yarn overs and your slip slip knit, it's definitely worth thinking back, because you need to have your slip slip knit be just before the center spine stitch. That way, you don't want to yarn over right before your center spine stitch, because when we go back the other direction on the right side, we're going to use these regular decrease stitches in order to do the central double decrease later, and you don't want to yarn over as part of your central double decrease. So I hope that makes sense. If not, don't worry too much about it. It's just something that to take notice of if you are interested in the way things are put together and constructed. So now that I've done my center spine stitch, I know that I'm going to do a knit two together because now this side, the short side, is going to lean toward the center. So that's going to begin the knit two together, yarn over, knit two together, yarn over on this half. So everything leans toward the center. The other thing to note as part of your eyelet rows is you always begin and end, before your last two selvage stitches, you begin and end with a yarn over or an eyelet. So at the beginning, we had our two selvage stitches and you start right out. That way, because it's a 2-stitch repeat, the yarn over decrease, your decreases will be on each side of the center spline. All right, as we're wrapping up the knit along, I want to be sure to direct you over to the Ravelry group. I'll also post in the Facebook group. There'll be a link to our grand prize giveaway for all the people that have finished their Lovella shawl by November 15th. Be sure to upload photos and show me what your shawl looks like. Be sure to include all the details because you know I love that. The yarn that you used and your project page on Ravelry if you have one, but if not, just put all the information, type it all in the post. Okay, there'll be a grand prize drawing and I'll be hosting that over on Rafflecopter. There'll be a link for all the information down below as well as in all the groups. As always, if you appreciate these videos, give me a thumbs up, click like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.